Hello people, how are you doing? Welcome back to the second video of the React series. So today we will learn a little bit more about React. Today's focus is learning what is React and why do we bother about learning React. So today's topic is very important for you to get a foundation ready so that you start appreciating the library that you are learning. Alright, without much delay, let's get into the action. Why React? We'll get the answer of this question by understanding what is React. Now, if I ask you what is React, or if you kind of start reading the definition of it, what you will get? You will get a definition like React is a declarative component-based JavaScript library for building user interfaces. That's too much. And I'm sure what's your reaction after hearing that? Now, I don't want you to understand this definition without understanding the key words that are highlighted over there. It's declarative, it's component-based, it's library for user interfaces. Now we will break into each of these keywords, try to understanding what are those, and once we understand, you will be able to appreciate React much more, right? So the first thing that you're trying to understand is what is declarative. So what the heck is declarative? So the main problem with the programming languages and the paradigms are like the jargons are very heavy, but once you get deep down to it, the meaning of those things are kind of pretty normal. So I thought of explaining this with a simple story. So let's take a simple story of husband and wife. So John, a husband, thinking about he needs to make a YouTube video. In the meantime, Mary appears. And what Mary asking for? Mary asking like, hey honey, can you get me a black coffee? So what happened after this? John disappears. His thought of you making a YouTube video disappears. He is taking some time to make the coffee, and after a while he is back with the coffee. Very simple story. So in this entire story, Mary never explained how to make this coffee. Mary just given an order like, please make the coffee and it should be a black coffee. And what John did, he went away to the kitchen, made the coffee without any further instruction, came and delivered the coffee. This is a declarative approach where you are saying someone, in the programming case it is computer, that what you are expecting and not telling how to fulfill that expectation. That is declarative. Okay. So in the programming language, declarative programming, you are telling computer, hey computer, I want this as an output, but you are not telling computer line by line like how to get this thing done. So that is declarative. We understood from the definition that React is declarative. We will see how React is declarative. But before you see that, the opposite of declarative is called imperative. So there is something called imperative programming. What exactly imperative? Now, let's get into the life of John and Mary again. And again, John is assuming that he is going to make a YouTube video. In the meantime, Mary comes in with the same request. Hey honey, give me some coffee. But in this time, what Mary is also saying that to make the coffee, please take the pan and boil some water. Give coffee powder into it. Don't add any milk. Give a pinch of sugar. And then boil it well and serve me hot. Right? So that's what Mary is demanding. So Mary is not only saying that give me a coffee, but also giving the instruction of how to make the coffee. So what happened is that in this case, John noted down the every step. Hey, let me note it down. And then John moves away. And after some time, John comes back with the coffee and coffee is delivered. So in the imperative programming, you describe what you want by specifying the instructions, specifying the steps of how to do it. That's a huge difference between the declarative and imperative programming, right? We will see now what exactly an imperative programming, what exactly declarative programming with code. But before that, I guess now you understand it much better, that, what is declarative and what is imperative. So coming back to the same question, got it, but why React is declarative? Let's understand this with a simple code, okay? All right, so let us understand the difference between imperative and declarative with some examples. So what we have done here is like I have written a snippet of code. It's very simple HTML code which is having bunch of HTML tags, like it has body, one heading H1, one paragraph which is having some text, and then one not li yet, just a UL element with an ID yReact. And then what I'm doing is like I'm importing one script over here like index.js because I have some code written into index.js. Now what happened if I run this particular file? Let me just go ahead and do a live preview. The preview will be here in a second. Alright, so we have the preview over here, and what we see basically, we see like it says the React, and then this paragraph appears. Then there are certain things is like why React over here, and then certain points over here. Right, these things we are not seeing in the HTML, but it is still appearing. Where is this appearing from? This is appearing because we have written some code into index.js file. So let's go move over to index.js file in a while. So in the index.js file, what I have, alright, so what I see is like I have an array of strings like reasons. There are a bunch of reasons over here, and then I have a function called tell why React. This is where what I am doing is like I am doing things like document.getElement by ID and specifying an ID. This is where I'm start doing something called DOM manipulation by myself using JavaScript. What is DOM manipulation? What is DOM? We'll get into the DOM details, too much into DOM details, virtual DOM details in a coming video, but like 30 seconds introduction is, it's a document object model. That is where everything that you see on a HTML page has been structured, has been rendered, and that is a gap bridging mechanism from your HTML to JavaScript world. So through JavaScript, we can query DOM, we can change the DOM so that whatever changes we are making, those gets rendered and reflected into the HTML directly. This is your 30 seconds description of what DOM is. We'll get into DOM really deep in the coming videos of this series. Now, so we have a index.html file with this ID why React. I am actually querying this element, UL element, using this document.getElement by ID. So this y ID now represents that particular UL element. Now what I am doing next I am creating a h2 element with document.createElement called heading. In that h2 element, I am setting the text called why React. I am adding a class called heading so that I can do some styling, and then I am adding this heading to that UL. So at this point of time, this UL element over here having a h2 inside with the text, inner text called heading and a class to do some styling. This is where this much code does so far. Now I want to kind of print each of this element from the array as a li fashion, as a list element under this UL. So what I'll be doing, I'll be looping through this array. I'm looping through this array, taking out each of the element. Reasons I is basically taking out each of the element from the array one by one, and in this each iteration I am creating a li element, list element, HTML element, setting the inner text, the text of that li element as each of the reason, and finally adding that list to my UL. So once I call this particular function, what is happening basically in this UL, one h2 tag is getting added saying that some text and a class, and then a li is getting added, bunch of li's are getting added depending on how many elements are there in the reasons array. That's the reason if I am running this one in the live preview, and if the live preview comes up, you will be able to see that there is a heading with in the blue color because I have styled it in that way, and there is a list of items with what are the reasons. So these reasons, this heading is coming basically, if I just go to the code once, this heading is coming basically this heading, and then this loop is actually printing this. Now if I have to open this guy into let's say in debugging mode, you can see it like this UL ID, then the h2 got added, and then each of this li got added, the entire structure I got. But how I approach this program? I approach this program by doing the DOM manipulation by myself. I have done it in the imperative way. I have not done it in the declarative way. I told each step to my programming language saying that, okay boss, now you add a h2, you add a text to h2, you add a class to h2, you add li, and then in each of the li you take the things from the array. Now you print that li into the UL element. I have actually given all such instructions, and then only this is done. So this is imperative way. Now let us see the same thing if I want to do it in declarative way in the React code. How am I going to do? One disclaimer, don't try to understand the code I am going to show, because I have not started the coding yet on React. I am just trying to keep it still in a very theory basis so that you start appreciating the language that you are learning. We'll get into the code and the syntaxes, every line, each bit of pieces in the videos, upcoming videos. So don't try to understand too much of the code, but try to appreciate the difference that we have seen. So we have seen imperative, let's see the declarative. This is the React code, and I have the similar kind of array that we have seen where all the reasons are there. And then this is a very special syntax called JSX. We'll talk about it in one of the upcoming videos. But it's look like HTML almost. Inside HTML we can also write JavaScript. Okay. So the same H1 we had over there, same P, same UL over here, and then I have added an H2, and then I'm iterating through that particular reasons array, and then I am actually having this li for each of the reason. So if you see here, I am not performing a single DOM manipulation by myself. Everything is completely abstracted away by React. What I am doing here, I am just instructing React that, hey React, I want an UL over here, and after this UL I want an H2, and after that H2 I want to iterate through this reasons array, and for each of the reasons I want to put an li with this particular reasons at the text. That is what I am telling. But for this to come into your browser, for this to render into your browser, the DOM manipulation, adding to the DOM, is something that inevitable, that has to happen. But you are not doing this. React is doing this for you. So you are telling React something, some instruction. React is actually getting these things done for you. That is why React is a declarative language. React is not imperative language. It is having abstraction of all this DOM for you, so that you can actually think about just doing your business logic, your presentation logic focused away. You don't worry about anything else. I hope you appreciate that part. Alright, so let us now move into the next part, that what is React is component based. Let us understand what exactly component based mean. Component based. So in component based, what we're trying to understand, how React is component based and what are the advantages of those. So let's first take a look at this picture. The left side is a monolithic one big component, and the right side is like we're broken into multiple components. So what exactly component is? Component is something like an isolated unit which has all the logic, basically your business logic, your presentation logic, your API integrations, everything within itself. So it means one component can be developed, can be tested completely into isolation from another component, and later point of time multiple components can be get together, can be integrated, and can perform the integration testing and all these things before we finally deliver. What are the advantages of doing this? Of course, you have a team of say 6-7 people. Your 6-7 people are able to now work on individual component without worrying about really disturbing others' code base, without worrying about a lot of dependencies among themselves. They can focus on their pieces. When the piece is done, they can integrate with other pieces, and everything is kind of very beautifully done. Boom, right? So that is where the component is pretty useful. Now let us take one example and try to understand how we can break into different components, so that in future, in the upcoming videos, when we start doing some coding, try to make some application, you will really start appreciating this component model. So let's have a look into it. So here is one very simple application. What exactly it is showing some result of students, like and it's categorized by the grades. So what it has, basically it has a header as a nav bar where we see a logo and the name like e-results. Then in the body you have a search, you can search by the student name, and then you have a list for grade 1, the name and the score. Say Alex B got this much, Brian got this much, and so on in the grade 2, and you can actually scroll down and see for other grades. Very, very simple application. Now the question here is, in how many different components you will be able to break these particular things down, this particular UI down? Will you be able to break it into multiple components? Think about it. I'm giving you a few seconds. Okay, hope you are able to think through it. So let's see how we will be able to break it into multiple components. So if I have to break into multiple components, I will break into in this way. So for example, this entire thing, I have put a kind of red border. I will come to that, but let's do that. So the first component that probably I'll be breaking into is like this top one, the header, the nav bar. Then here I'll be kind of telling something like score body or something like that. Inside that I have a search component. Then I have the scores component. Inside the score I have each of the score. I have this heading. After that I have this score list component, and I can even go further. Inside that I can have a score table. For each of the table I have a table row. So you can go to any logical level down to break into different components. Now again, too much of breaking down too much of the components is not good. We'll talk about that in the pattern and the anti-pattern and when we talk about the React component that time. But for now, the focus is about what are the different components that you can break into. So this one UI, you can actually break into various different independent components like this header, this particular search box, this particular score list, and then people can actually independently deliver. So that's why the component is very powerful. React is a component based library, so it means that it encourages you to create different components and create it in isolation, test it in isolation, and once it is done, then integrate that component with some other component to build the entire story, right? So for this particular e-result story, what are the components that I can actually get? Let's see. So I will be able to get this various components like the main component I can say like app. Inside app I have a nav bar, and then I have something called a result. So this portion is something like a result. Inside result I have a search. Then I have something called scores. If you relate with the colors, the pink color, the scores. Inside the scores I have score, multiple score, and inside one score I have a score heading, and then I have this score list. So see like how many different components you can build and how many different components you can build in isolation, right? And the next thing that I'm going to show you, it is showing basically how many such components are there. It's the same thing but in a different hierarchy. Like you have in the app, inside app you have one nav and one results. Inside one result you have one search bar, one score. In one score you can have multiple scores. So one scores you have multiple scores for grade 1 and then for grade 2 and so on, and for each of the score you can have a score heading and then the score list. This is not only important for segregation of work, this is also very important for reusability. So if you are building this search over here and tomorrow you need this search elsewhere, in this application, you don't have to re-implement it. You can actually take this component as is and can use it somewhere else. That's the biggest power of this, isn't it? So that's the biggest power of React, reusability, right? So this component level stuff is going to give us a lot of reusability. So we understood why this component based library is really important. The next thing that we are going to look at is like why React is a library, why people are calling it a library but not a framework. It's a very famous interview questions, by the way, so I want to kind of explain that very quickly. So why React is a user interface library but not a framework? What is the difference between a framework and a library? Let's take it in this way. If we call it as a framework, it does multiple things, okay, whereas library is kind of focused on just one thing and get it done very well. In case of framework, it does multiple things. It has a flexibility of multiple things. Why React is a library? Because React was actually invented or actually designed, coded to solve the problem of user interface development, and it does that. It's a component based declarative, all these things we have seen, it just exactly does that. It doesn't do anything beyond that. But if it had to be a framework, it should have had a few more things to it. For example, we would have had routing inbuilt inside React, we don't have. We would have had a testing framework inbuilt inside React, we don't have. We use something like maybe Jest or React test library or things like that. Data fetching, we have to use Axios or Fetch API to do that. Building, unless you are bringing it from something outside, you have to do all the build infrastructure by yourself with Parcel or Webpack or whatever. State management, you probably have to use Redux or any other tool to do that. Notification system or theming or localization or anything, practically anything that you want to do in a React based application, you have to bring it from outside. You have to bring that as an additional libraries, and you have to actually use it along with React UI library. React is only meant for doing this, and it does it really well. Isn't it a disadvantage that we are bringing so many things from outside? It all depends how do you think it. I think this is a great advantage because now I have the liberty of what I want to use versus I don't want to use. I might be using Cypress as a testing infrastructure, rather I may be using the React test library as an infrastructure. I might choose to use Fetch or I might choose to use Axios. I might use a certain localization library versus this other localization library. I might use this particular build structure versus that particular build structure. So for my project need, what exactly needed, I can actually choose that. That's why React is pretty powerful in terms of giving you the liberty, giving you the flexibility of doing things in your way. You must just focus on building things and then bringing things whatever you need. That's why React is a library, it's not a framework. So we have covered all these things that we had to cover today, but we started with what is React, and I'm sure that while we were talking about what is React, we understood pretty well that why exactly React is required. Okay, so let's revise that once and then we'll get done with this particular session. All right, so why React? Definitely it is declarative. We don't do a lot of stuff. We tell React to do it, React does it. It is component based. It means that you actually write things in the component infrastructure and things just happen. You can reuse, you can actually test things in isolation, develop things in isolation. That's fantastic news. It's a library giving you a lot of flexibility of bringing things of your own, and then what you do basically, you actually develop things in your complete way. So I hope you appreciate this library as we go along in our further videos, and we do a lot of hands-on going forward. So that's all for today. If you have any further question, please put in the comment section, or that's my Twitter handle @tapasatikari. Please reach out to me. Feel free to follow me so that I also publish a lot of content over there. You can actually get a lot of advantages from the content that I share. All right. And the last thing, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to this channel, because I am going to share some mind-blowing content on this channel. You don't want to miss that. So subscribe. All right. So let's get back with the next video. Until then, please take a great care of yourself and stay healthy. Thank you.